Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Hope you're well this Saturday afternoon. My name is Lihle Mabuza, and I will be the program director for today. We are so happy that you could make it and be with us today. We welcome those who are physically here as well as those who are online. We are the students at the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria, currently doing the Human Rights and Democratization in Africa program. We're running a couple of campaigns. So one of them is on African Migrants Matter. The other one is on Stop Cameroon Violations. So the other one that we are currently gathered about today is Revive the Sadek Tribunal, right? Yes. So as we are here, we're going to have a conversation in terms of what is the Sadek Tribunal, what has happened to it, and what needs to happen. So please be ready to share your thoughts and to comment and to provide and to have questions as the conversation continues. So we are streaming online, and we on Facebook, and I think on YouTube as well. So we will be keeping tabs on the questions. We will be keeping tabs. I need to have volume. We will be keeping tabs in terms of the questions and the comments that are there as well. So if you are joining us online, welcome. And also please make sure to use the comment box to post all your questions and your comments. As we sit here, I believe we all have smartphones, and our friends have smartphones, and our families have smartphones, and everyone. So please make sure that you tweet. We have the hashtag Revive Sadek Tribunal. So please make sure as the conversation continues that you tweet and you use the hashtag online. And then lastly, just for the house rules before we continue today, please remember that it's COVID time, so all COVID protocols must be observed, please. Have your masks, social distancing, and also if you're looking for the bathrooms, they are, as you exit the building, you just go around the building, you'll see the signs there. I don't think there's any much more I can say, but maybe before we continue, I'd like to call upon Zwe Baba to come up and basically tell us what is this campaign about. When we talk about hashtag Revive Sadek Tribunal, what are we aiming to achieve? What is it all about? So that when we move on, we're all on the same page. Can we welcome Zwe on stage?
Thank you so much, Lihle, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining our event this afternoon. It's a weekend, and it's a very busy week for the rest of the class. So we really appreciate you taking time off of your busy schedules to join us. I also want to acknowledge the presence of our guests, Professor Poko, and we also have we're honored to have in our presence representatives of the Special Tribunal at the Department of Justice from South Africa. So, well, just to put our campaign into perspective, the Revive Sadek Tribunal project is an advocacy campaign that we initiated on the 24th of May, and which we hope to wrap up on the 4th of June. What we seek to achieve in that short space of time is a couple of goals. The first one is to raise as much awareness on the state of the Sadek Tribunal as it exists right now. Secondly, to try and push for as much policy attention to be drawn on possibly reinstating the Sadek Tribunal to its prior glory. It's been referred to as a House of Justice. We'll get into that briefly. And thirdly, to try and cause as much, I don't want to say controversy, because to raise as much discourse as can be possibly raised between now and August, when the Sadek Summit is going to take place in Malawi. It is our hope that the states that will be represented at the summit will at least have a discussion on reviving the SADC Tribunal. We don't think that it's something that will be achieved immediately, but it's something that we think certainly should not remain in the shelves. So there's a couple of activities that will be conducting as part of our project. One, obviously, is this event, which is more of a launch event where we hope to is people that ordinarily would not know what the SADC Tribunal is, or ordinarily would not care about the SADC Tribunal. Because we think the SADC Tribunal is important to everyone. So we think it's something that should be as representative as possible and something that everyone should have an idea about. We also currently have a petition running. It's been on for 48 hours, but I'm happy to share with you that we have garnered up to 400 signatures from people who didn't even know what the SADC Tribunal is, but because of the information that we've been sharing and the interaction that we've been having, and the engagement that they've been having, it's something that that seems to interest them, and this is exactly what the project seeks to do. We also will not just be collecting those petitions and just keeping them for ourselves. We hope to write to the responsible individuals in all the states in the Sadek to demonstrate the extent of public concern about the SADC Tribunal as represented in that petition. So we will be speaking directly to those people that are in positions of making decisions about the future of the SADC Tribunal. We also have a media campaign, which I'm sure you'll be interacting with in the near future. As you can see, David is already here. He'll be helping us with creating as much media as possible that can also be put out there. Essentially, there's a lot that's happening in the campaign, and I would bore you if I went through each and every single activity. But I guess the point here is we would very much like the SADC Tribunal to come back. And as master students, we are pretty much, identifying the strategies that we can adopt within our limited influence, within our limits in reach. But we are confident that post this campaign, the SADC Tribunal will not just be something that's within the knowledge of lawyers and politicians and professors, but it's something that will be publicly known. Why do we want the SADC Tribunal to come back? 3 words: access to justice. And this is something that is exceptionally important, especially in the SADC region. You will note that a lot of the countries in SADC have not given their populations direct access to the African court. And so what it means is there's very limited recourse that the people in the SADC region have in the event that they don't get access, they don't get justice in their countries. So we are concerned about the ability to have your issues heard and how the disbanding of the individual complaints power of the SADC Tribunal significantly reduces that access. Ultimately, that's the goal of this campaign. And maybe just to conclude, I want to make reference to the case of Mike Campbell and others versus Zimbabwe, where the SADC Tribunal found that Zimbabwe's amendment of the Constitution to prevent people from, going to court to campaign about to complain, about the land invasion was in direct violation of Article 4 of the SADC Treaty, in that it limited their access to justice, which fundamentally went to the root of the rule of law. That's essentially what the SADC Tribunal seeks to achieve, to provide access to justice, which goes to the root of rule of law. And that's a value that SADC countries purport to hold in dearly. So we're just here to make accountability trend again, because that's exactly why the Sadek Tribunal exists. So thank you so much for being part of this very ambitious campaign. With your support, we're taking one step closer to reviving the Sadek Tribunal. And please do enjoy the rest of this launch event. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zwe, for that. So right now, in terms of our program, we're going to go into the next part of the reason why we're here today, right? We're here to hear what the professor has to say about the Sadek Tribunal. So our keynote address for today is given by Professor Moses Poko. He'll be talking about Badimu, Spirits of the Dead. Mike Campbell resuscitates meaningful action to the future of the suspended Sadek Tribunal. And we are looking forward to it. So please remember to tweet, ask your questions. So at this, without further ado, I'll ask the professor to please come up and give us his keynote address. Can we give him a round of applause?
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to be here. I can see long-time friends in academia. I see Prof. Kilanda is here. Colleagues from the Department of Justice. Colleagues from the Special Tribunal dealing with sexual offenses. I am honored to be amongst you. In fact, I believe that your task is far advanced. When I was a master's student many years ago, I did not think about what you guys are doing at this stage. Can someone assist with the logistics, the presentation? Yes, I'm doing that. Oh, okay, you are fine with that. Whenever you want. Okay, perfect. So without wasting more time, let me get to the business of the day. Perhaps I should stand here much better.
The live streamers can see you from the camera.
It's not.
So the projection is over. But you want to know it doesn't work.
It doesn't work here. Oh, you see, that's the danger of preparing the PowerPoint presentation, because it sort of channels you, but that doesn't matter. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the title of my topic, as you can see there, it's a bit catchy or controversial rather. Badimu, the spirits of the dead. Mike Campbell comes out with a new energy to revive the Sadek Tribunal. For the sake of those who do not understand what Badimu is, Badimu basically refers to those who have transitioned into the other world of the non-living. So basically the title, it's trying to say, even if you are beyond this earth, I don't know where they are, under the ground maybe, you still have an influence on issues that are still happening. But that is a discussion for another day, because colleagues from other disciplines will venture much into that. But I do agree with them that even after death, life goes on. This is how I intend to deal with the course of my presentation. Firstly, I will look at the historical background of the Sadek Tribunal. What is this institution? Where is it? Has it been disbanded or suspended? But my position has always been that the Sadek Tribunal has not been disbanded. Rather, it has been suspended. Whether you agree or you disagree with me, we will engage later on. The second issue is regarding the land reform program. I won't go much to the history on how the land was dispossessed, but I'm more interested on the mechanisms that seeks to inject or to redistribute land in Zimbabwe, and to a limited extent, the Sadek region as a whole. Then I look at the first two cases that came before the SADC Tribunal. And I believe that without Mike Campbell, the tribunal possibly would have not had any jurisprudence so far, or maybe it could have still been living. The third one, the fourth rather, I look at the two cases, one from the South African jurisdiction, the other one from Tanzania, wherein the adoption of the 2014 protocol, which sought to do away with access for individuals, kind of was adopted in a manner that remains controversial even today. I proceed to look at the attitude of the current president of the Republic of Zimbabwe on how he views the tribunal and how he seeks to engage with it going forward. Then I go back to where I started. I will go back now to my topic, but in this context, trying to link it to this particular launch, the 29th of May, 2021. Then I extensively proceed to deal with the campaign. I offer some thoughts on the way forward. I think the introductory speaker here did a bit touch on that. Lastly, I will draw what I refer to is my conclusion and the sources that I have consulted. Otherwise, I will be accused of having committed plagiarism. Well, when the drafters of the Sadek Treaty developed the treaty itself, they envisaged that in future, we are going to have a tribunal which shall become the judicial organ of Sadek. The tribunal eventually came into life as per Article 9, read with Article 16 of the Sadek Treaty. Well, its duty was basically to ensure that Sadek member states adhere to their treaty obligations, and just like any judicial organ, to interpret all the protocols that are applicable. In other words, the legal framework of the tribunal itself. You can see there that the tribunal came into existence in 2000, in the year 2000, when the 2000 protocol on the Sadek Tribunal was adopted. I have deliberately italicized the 2000 tribunal because to me, it is what triggered the tribunal today to be where it is. I don't know where it is. I don't know when you suspend the tribunal, where do you take it, Magnus? You shelve it, because the institutions are still there in Namibia. So, ladies and gentlemen, what happened in 2000 is that when they adopted this particular 2000 protocol to operationalize and establish the tribunal, the protocol came in an unfamiliar manner. What do I mean by that? In terms of the Sadek treaty mechanism, all the treaties and protocols have at least to be adopted by 9 members. But there was a fear that should they stick to that requirement, the tribunal will never come into being, given the different dynamics in the Sadek states. So they agreed that, okay, we are going to do away now with this 9 members requirement. Instead, let us just, make a sort of a gentleman's agreement and bring this protocol into being. By then, Botswana and Lesotho, I think they had already kind of signed it, about 4 SADC member states. In other words, it was left with about 5 states to proceed, but they realized that we are not going anywhere. Let us bypass the process. Just like any judicial organ, the decisions of the Sadek Tribunal are final and binding. We are now back into Zimbabwe. So what happened? The issue of land reform, particularly agricultural land, it's something that started even before the constitutional amendment in 2005. On the right-hand side there, you can see the gentleman, his name is the former Minister of Justice. He was a Minister Chinamasa. A very intelligent gentleman who was the advisory to the late President Robert Mugabe. May his soul rest in peace. So the Minister of Justice, you could tell that it's someone who had engaged with legal practice for quite some time, because even though the points that he raised challenging the Sadek Tribunal, including the procedure that I alluded to earlier on about the adoption of the 2000 Tribunal Protocol, you could tell that this is someone who knows his story. 2001, the late Mr. Campbell, while sitting in his farm, he received a notice indicating that his land is one of those that have been identified for the use by the government. Mr. Campbell decides to challenge that notice before the High Court of Zimbabwe. Fortunately, the court rules in his favor, says, no, that proclamation or notice is unconstitutional and cannot stand. That was a temporary victory. Several other notices were issued, giving him to vacate within 45 days and so on, but nothing would happen. So I think then the government realized that here I was dealing with a very powerful someone, not someone who could be easily silenced. That's when they came with the Amendment 17 of 2005. This amendment, in short, basically empowered the government to expropriate identified agricultural land without compensation. In addition to that, if you are the victim of land expropriation, this particular amendment took away the jurisdiction of local courts to deal with any matter that is related to land expropriation. In other words, you could not go before the local courts of Zimbabwe to challenge the land that has been taken from you. In a nutshell, it assists you because local remedies have been exhausted. They took his land. Then he approached the SADC Tribunal, 2007, the very first case to confront the tribunal. Other scholars are of the belief that, had maybe a particular case, not this one, presented itself before the tribunal, we could be not even launching this campaign today because the tribunal would be still in existence. Unfortunately, it was seized with this sensitive political land issue. But we are not politics, we are academics. He received his interim relief, and the court ordered that the government please stay away from Mr. Mike Campbell, including his land. The other case that came simultaneously with this, so that was Campbell 1 dealing with interdict, interim measures. The second one, this is where Mike Campbell was saying, my rights have been infringed. My right to property, discrimination, and so on have been infringed. You can see there, I've deliberately inserted human rights in brackets. So as I indicated that the then Minister of Justice was ahead almost of all the Sadek leaders. He said his main argument was that a proper look of the Sadek Treaty, including the 2000 Tribunal Protocol, did not empower the tribunal to deal with issues related to violations of human rights. In other words, the tribunal did not have the authority or power to preside over human rights. The issue of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law were merely undertakings of member states. On top of that, they were merely expressed in the preamble. So it would be absurd, argued the state of Zimbabwe, that one can actually draw obligations from a preamble. So we all know what happened. The court decided to invoke the doctrine of implied powers. In other words, reading the treaty as a whole, taking into account the aims and objectives of the treaty. And it came to the conclusion that there's no way that you can talk of democracy, the rule of law, and so on, without respecting human rights. We know it relied on the East African Court of Justice, the Katabanzi case, and the doctrine of implied powers. In fact, the ICJ has also applied it several times. I'm not going to go deep into the dynamics of the proponents of express powers versus implied powers, save to acknowledge that not everyone is supporting resort to implied powers because heads of states, so they say, made their intentions very clear by agreeing to what is presented before them. Following or after that case, that was the decision of the tribunal. Mr. Campbell, now armed with this particular decision, went to his home country, Zimbabwe, and tried to enforce the judgment. The court in Ethere versus Minister of National Security and others said This is a constitutionally approved project, the land reform project. Therefore, we do not have any basis whatsoever to entertain the decision of the tribunal in any way. The tribunal operates on its separate sphere. That is the Sadek international sphere. Here in the domestic courts, our supreme law is the Constitution. And the Sadek Treaty has not said anything about the hierarchy of Sadek community law or our domestic laws. Please leave our courts. That's how he lost. The fee case in SA, obviously the SA sort of granted him relief, albeit on questionable grounds. And to that effect, Zimbabwean property was attached somewhere in Cape Town. I don't know. So that is a matter that is still not settled, because South Africa follows a dualism approach. Therefore, international treaties have to be domesticated in order to become part and parcel of the law. So on how the Constitutional Court arrived to that decision, that they had to enforce that decision without having enacted any legislation that speaks to the 2000 Tribunal Protocol and the Sadek Treaty. It's a discussion for another day. The suspension of the tribunal. So in my view now, remember, politicians are very clever and energetic. My suspicion is that the heads of states, ministers of justice and so on, from Zim, approached all the other countries that were more likely to be affected by the outcome of the decision. Remember, had Zimbabwe, and that's my view, acknowledge the judgment of the Sadek Tribunal, that was basically to be a precedent binding on all other Sadek states, regardless of the historical injustices of the land issue. South Africa comes into a picture. The situation here in Zimbabwe is the same. Let us not go further. You go to Namibia, the same issue. So that judgment was a hot potato. That's why they decided to play all these games to do away with the tribunal. And obviously, the issues of solidarity, colonization, and so on, those were topical issues during the discussions that perhaps we need to get rid of this particular tribunal, because it is now doing what we never gave it the authority to do. Let us come up with a separate human rights instrument. Magnus will agree with me that the attempts to have a separate human rights instrument failed. They did not see the light of the day. 18 August 2014, the summit adopted what I refer to as the 2014 Tribunal Protocol. Basically now, taking away individual access to the envisaged new tribunal. Obviously, before that, they said in 2010, the tribunal has been suspended. according to them, they were conducting a study and they appointed an independent expert by the name of Dr. Butlers. Pardon my pronunciation, I hope I'm correct. And in 2010, it was said that the tribunal should not receive or hear any matter to that effect. To their surprise, when the report of the independent consultant approached and appointed by them, it said you do not have any basis to suspend the tribunal. Then they said your job is done, please go. That report took some time before it could become public. So you could see the culture about 10 years ago. You had leaders who sort of supported each other, regardless of what the circumstances before them were. But there's one country that has been always clear on its position. Botswana has always been clear. Even with President Mugabe, that we are not going to support you because we agreed to this particular instrument. Even other countries, but because, you know, if you don't have a strong voice like mine, you support others, you know, behind the doors because they find you or whatever aid they provide to your country. So you are caught between stomach of the politics and the rule of law. You have to decide, and they decide to keep quiet. The Law Society of South Africa and the Tanganyika Law Society of South Africa. Just after it came, you know, it became public news that the former President Zuma had signed this particular 2014 protocol. A challenge came that, you know, his action was unlawful, breached the rule of law, access to justice, etc. And the court ordered that the president should go and withdraw his signature. I don't know when you go to withdraw a signature, what do you actually do? Do you erase it? Or you write unsigned, or maybe there's a different instrument. But eventually, that occurred. The Constitutional Court of South Africa was very clear. Please go and withdraw your signature. You cross to Tanzania. The court there was a bit cautious on how it used its language. The issue of separation of powers, you know, came into being, this and that and that. Eventually they said, no, we are leaving this matter to the executive. But in the interim, you have violated the rule of law, denied your citizens access to the tribunal. That 2014 protocol cannot be said to be adopted in a manner that promotes the spirit of the Sadek Treaty. But the Tanzanian High Court went further than that. It said, until such time you open the doors of the Sadek Tribunal, we as the courts of Tanzania are going to receive dispute arising from the Sadek Treaty concerning individuals, Tanzanian individuals and the state. Obviously, what is the impact of these two decisions? There's nothing much we can get from them. They are only enforceable in the domestic terrain of these two respective countries. It doesn't follow that if Zambia maybe or Lesotho were to take the same course, these decisions would be binding. Maybe their value would be that of persuasive authority, depending on how those local courts react to international judgments from other jurisdictions. I am back to where I started. Badimo, the spirits of the dead. Remember, Campbell passed on in 2011. This is just my story. I've created my story. We are welcome to support or challenge it. Mike Campbell, in my view, is fighting from the grave. He passes on in 2011. 2018, you have a favorable judgment from the Constitutional Court of South Africa. 2014, the Tanzanian High Court rules also that no, the disbandment of the tribunal was unlawful. Again, on the same year, the president of South Africa withdraws from that controversial 2014 protocol. Last year, the current sitting president of Zimbabwe goes publicly and says, I am going to compensate all the farmers whose land was taken away. You will remember from your law of state responsibility. He basically says, whatever the actions of that previous government, I do not go with them. I support the tribunal. His actions basically says the tribunal issued legitimate judgments following a due process. Therefore, they should be enforced. It's a U-turn. 28 May 2021, just before I received an invite to be part of this discourse, a colleague from the National University of Lesotho, another one in Kenya, another one from the University of the Western Cape, Matapelo, Precious Ndlovu, Mkhululinyati. We sat down and said, let us create a research collaboration. But the main purpose of this collaboration was that when you talk of the legal framework of Sadek community law, people appear to be shocked. What is Sadek community law? Then you ask yourself, but they are talking about the SADC Tribunal, but they do not know Sadek community law. So one of our objectives is basically to compile all the information that is necessary and of course, research and publish, trying to further develop what is already existing. Let me not market this collaboration further, but focus on our event. Then 29 May, we are here. We are here. Ladies and gentlemen, in my view, this campaign is relevant. It came at a right time. For that matter, or as far as I can remember, there is no initiative that has been taken similar to this one. I stand to be corrected. The spirit of Campbell's lives on. That's where I stand. Again, if you look around, everyone is talking in the corners. Let us do something about the tribunal. But no one has been bold enough to say, we are taking this initiative. I think you should give yourselves a round of applause. And to be frank with you, the strategy that you are adopting, it's what other civil society organizations have been thinking about. Their first approach was that they lobbied. Remember, civil society, you know, they connect throughout. You do this here, the next thing, it's all over Africa. They said, colleagues in all the Sadek countries, let us institute court actions challenging that 2014 protocol. But at a long run, they realized that you started the March court. By the time you reach the highest court, it's 2 years, 3 years later. That was going to take the rest of their time. Besides that, what country is that? I think in Mozambique, they also tried a similar approach, like Tanzania and South Africa. But the application was dismissed on technical grounds. So they realized this approach is not working. Rather, let's go for the advocacy approach. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, this campaign, you know, it's well situated. I can see all of you, you are still younger than me. You are still energetic and have the ability to think more. The work has started today.
Yes.
But where to from here? Are we just going to have these jamborees, eat food and go? 2 years down the line, 2 years down the line, people start asking, but Prof. Pogo, you were part of that initiative. What happened to it? And I'll be searching for Amy to be nowhere to be found. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our words into action.
Yes.
Let us not start things and leave them hanging.
Yes.
We do not have resources to say so or to do so. But the journey ahead, it's a huge task. Already, I see you have already invited someone from the Department of Justice. It's a huge approach. We should have this tea with them now and then.
Yes.
So that when they go back, depending on how they have accepted our views, they can lobby their fellow colleagues in other countries. And basically, as you have said, this matter could be put back on the Sadek agenda very soon. But I think also we should not leave aside the issue of the relationship between Sadek community law and member states, because it's one of the reasons that the tribunal was suspended. The issue of the supremacy of the Sadek community law on member states. Are there any lessons that we can take from the European Court of Justice? Obviously, the circumstances are not the same. In conclusion, I believe that we can no longer continue to distinguish ourselves from other regional blocs as people who do not have a judicial organ at a regional level. Let us proceed where we have left. There is no basis for the suspension of the Sadek Tribunal, and the 2014 Tribunal Protocol has no legal force or effect. In fact, if you remember, just after the adoption of the 2000 Tribunal Protocol, there was an amendment which was made, and the effect of that amendment is that the 2000 Protocol was an integral part of the Sadek Treaty, which basically means that the threshold for amending it, at least you need 3/4 majority. But the way they adopted it, they followed a simple procedure. 9 states. Forgetting or intentionally ignoring the fact that that protocol is an integral part of the treaty. This is the bibliography. I did not intentionally cite my sources, but when I did research, I came across with my name. But what is interesting, I have never seen a topic which remains topical for this long. From 2012, if you remember very well, in fact, 2017, the SADC Tribunal has been always relevant and topical. 6 years after my PhD, it remains living. The spirit of Campbell is living. But what I wanted to say is that, you know, this program, it came or it has been initiated at the right place. If you look at all, you know, the scholars here, these are the scholars and former doctoral students who came from this institution. So it's well placed, it's well positioned. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, the questions, should I take them while seated or?
I think maybe before we continue, Prof, we can take the questions, but I just wanted to ask if the tribunal, and also I know that the Sadek Lawyers Association, who've also been working on this, are represented here. If they'd like to just respond, have 2 minutes in terms of saying what they've done in terms of this campaign, then we'll take some questions. You can come here if you want.
Thank you very much, Professor, for such an informative presentation. Thank you, everyone, for being here for this launch. This is a very important launch in as far as democracy and the rule of law is concerned in the Sadek region. My name is Bright Muyama, and I'm a programs officer at SADC Lawyers Association. And we have been working on this issue of restoration of the Sadek Tribunal. And mostly we do advocacy, and we have conducted several advocacy missions in the region. We have conducted missions in Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana and other countries. But the challenges that we have been facing in as far as the restoration of the Sadek Tribunal is most governments, the attorney generals and the minister of justice, they are saying, okay, we hear you, you are saying like, I want to restore the Sadek Tribunal. But the challenge is, I don't know, Professor, if you can assist. It's now more of a question now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because most responses that we've been getting, they are saying they are more welcome to the idea of establishing a regional human rights court more than restoring the Sadek Tribunal, because their argument is just that, like, you know, most regions in Africa, like the East Africa, there's a regional court, and in the Sadek, we don't have a regional court since the abolishment of the Sadek Tribunal. So that's basically what we've been doing. We've been more on the advocacy side, and I really appreciate to be part of this launch. of the campaign, and I look forward to working with you guys. If any contributions that you may need from us, you are welcome to let us know. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good afternoon, Prof, and thank you for inviting us here. I must admit that having seen this invitation on Professor Popo's blog, that was last week, we immediately, as a special tribunal, got into contact with him because it is exactly what we are doing as a special tribunal of the Republic of South Africa. Prof, in your presentation, you actually touched on quite a lot that it's fundamentally of interest to us. There is just a very, very thin line that one has observed. Maybe just by, without necessarily taking too much of your time, just a brief background to it. Prof, you spoke about the suspension of the tribunal. And I must indicate that this particular tribunal that I'm employed as a spokesperson for is not the first one. It just depends on the political mood at the time. During the time of President Mandela, this special tribunal came into the picture. It was established, led by retired Judge F.L.M. Heath. President Mandela's term ended in 1999. Fast forward 20 years down the line, in 2019, President Ramaphosa comes in. He looks at the gravity of the state of corruption in the country, and he says, I need a special tribunal in place. When he announced this in Parliament, it was at the opening of Parliament in 2019, he said, Tribunal, I'm putting together a team of 8 judges. There is an amount to recover here. The scope, you go and recover almost 15 billion. That is said to be lost as a result of malfeasance, corruption, fraud, and all these irregularities. We are in our 2nd year. This term of office ends in 2020, next year this time. And the question now, Prof, is that what will be the political mood at the time? Because just like the Scorpions, if those who recall what happened at the time of the Scorpions, once you've got this tool, effective as it is, I mean, we have granted quite a number of orders. We are given 15 billion to recover. As we speak, I think we are almost approaching 4 billion. So you can still tell we still have a long way to go, and we will not recover this within a year, but it will depend on what will be the mood at the time. Now, as we move on and on, we recover the money, and in terms of the special tribunal, this particular one, which is just a component of what the Saddek Tribunal, the complete picture must look like. Ours is mostly to institute civil recovery proceedings. And I would maybe through your Prof and through your Program Director, maybe invite, when you've got a sitting of the special tribunal, maybe get through or the leadership of the center, maybe come visit our special tribunal city, where there is a judge. I'm sure we will take the necessary logistics into place. We'll just make sure that you're properly accredited, and then you observe how the special tribunal proceedings unfold. There is a judge who sits there, and then there are parties, the SIU, the Special Investigating Unit happens to be the main applicant. They come, they argue the matter, and at the end of the day, there is an order that will be granted. I'm sure after this, we will arrange that and we will look into the matter, because most of our matters, normally they attract media because these are high profile cases. So we will look into that. We are not sure. You spoke about the suspension of the special tribunal. Look at the Rwandan tribunal when it happened in 1994. Even up until now, some of the answers have not yet been, and some of the questions have not yet been answered. I'm not sure if ever there was ever a proper closure with the 1993 Yugoslavian tribunal, the one that was led by Goldstone. So the long and short of it is that I spoke about the Scorpions. And those who know the story behind the scorpions, currently it's now the hawks, will know that once you have this animal with biting teeth, and it goes even to bite in the pockets of the politicians and all these decision makers, problems start. If President Ramaphosa, I'm just giving an example, tomorrow is no longer in Mahlambandovu, and then there's this other person who comes in, is the president, and he doesn't understand what this animal is called, ultimately it will collapse. And as I was listening to Prof, as I followed his slides here, I could tell that some of the frustrations, some of the problems encountered by some of the states were results of, were a result of the people who were leaders at the time. That is a very important point that I needed to make. I wish we had more time, because as I was driving here, I spoke to the head of the SIU, Advocate Muti, and I told him about this, and he had wished that there was a representation from his office, so that we can share experiences, we can compare and contrast. But from the special tribunal's point of view, with our experiences, with our lessons that we are putting together, we pledge to be with you as you move on in this journey towards ensuring that the Sadek Tribunal is there. I'm sure we can avail 1 or 2 judges from the special tribunal at a particular point, if so requested, because they deal with these cases on a daily basis. They have lots and lots of experiences to share. So I think next time we'll have that properly arranged. But at the end of it all, we wish you all the best, and may the best team, Prof, win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll just go into our question and answer session. I might add that it's actually lovely. Yes, there's a burning question that is here. But maybe before I take your question, it's just I wanted to acknowledge the fact that as we're having this conversation, we actually have colleagues that come from across the continent. And so I think in terms of, as we have this conversation, it's not just about us, but also, spreading the message across the continent in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So I'll take the first question to the professor. Over to you, Wandeto.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. My name is Washira from Kenya. And thank you very much for the presentation. There's no doubt that we need a SADC Tribunal, we need a court that can resolve matters beyond the national level. However, the question that made the court to be suspended or dissolved in the first place has not been responded to. And for me, that is problematic, because we are talking about the spirit of Campbell. And when these so-called land invasions, I view them as reclamation, started, I saw a video of a Zimbabwean chief going to a particular land and saying, our ancestors are buried here. You will find their bones down here. So why are we sympathizing so much with the spirits of Campbell, who from my little studies was an apartheid soldier who went to Zimbabwe, fought against the freedom fighters of Zimbabwe, settled in Zimbabwe? Why is his spirit more important than that of the Zimbabweans whose land was violently robbed? If we bring back, or if the tribunal comes back and the position remains the same, what is the implication of their judgment on the question of land, on the question of classical colonialism, which this judgment was extended? That for me needs to be resolved by, academicians and all that, before we now say, where is the position of judicial difference, for example, in such matters? And lastly, is there any example of where in the world land reforms have occurred in an orderly manner? I've seen Russia land reforms, I've seen land reforms in China, in Cuba, and many other places, Algeria. Is there any other place where the rule of law and all these other good principles have been followed with respect to the question of land reform? That's my question.
I don't know if there's any other question before we ask the prof to answer. Prof, we'll ask you to answer. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Oh, maybe sorry about that. Yes, can we just have that? We'll just take this question, then you can answer, Prof.
Thank you so much. Very interesting presentation. My concern personally would be on accountability and this aspect of taking away a key institution that is available to citizens of the country, taking away that accountability.
Sorry, Tobikile, can I just ask you to come down? I think the guys online can't hear you well. Yes, sorry about that.
All right, thank you so much for very insightful, conversations around, or rather a presentation that was touching on critical issues around the Sadek Tribunal. My name is Tobekile from Zimbabwe, and having worked in civil society in Zimbabwe, and you managed to kind of allude to what has been done by civil society. And my question to you is, what do you think should be done by civil society to take this campaign further, or to join in what conversations we're having today, and how we can ensure that for citizens of Southern Africa, there is an accountability mechanism, a mechanism that is, homegrown within our region, that citizens can literally have access to, because right now, I think what essentially is the situation is that there is no sub-regional mechanism, which citizens of Southern Africa can be able to make use of to raise their concerns and their grievances. So what do you think should be done beyond advocacy, or is advocacy enough? I just heard you a little bit allude to the advocacy initiatives of civil society. Yes, so I'd love to hear that.
Thank you very much for interesting questions. I omitted to indicate that I am an academic. I ask questions, not that it should be the other way around. But since I'm forced to answer them, I think that was the fourth question. The first two questions came from him and from my brother, from the Sadek Lawyers Association, which is, your question is to a large extent connected to hers. I think the three questions basically, with the exclusion of yours, my brother, from Naivasha. So let me join the three questions. There's no silver bullet in dealing with advocacy. Different strategies might work for certain countries and not for other countries. But what I've observed, it's very important that you identify, key stakeholders. You don't want people who only, do something behind the doors, and when they are supposed to implement, they are not there. For example, whoever has done and invited the Ministry of Justice, that's a first powerful step. Which countries are more politically willing to save the SADC Tribunal. Let's reverse the things a bit. No one would have gone to Zimbabwe 2 years ago or a year to say, President Mugabe, let us revive the tribunal, because you'd be wasting your time. He was not interested to see it functioning. But go to Botswana, a very small but powerful nation. You talk the so-called, what do they call, this word is escaping, diplomats. You know, all these things are all about an effective lobbying. Once you win the hearts of all these guys, when they go there and speak to their ministers, they will convey your message. Then you have to come up with a strategy that works. But for me, being closer with the politicians and convincing them, why do you need this, might be a good strategy as a starting point. Because without them, how will you get this matter to even make it into the agenda? Get 2 or 3, the same principle that applies when they are electing members of the Security Council. People go around, they lobby, they get influential ones, powerful ones. It's a sort of a trading deal. If I support you in this, what will you do for me, the country, and so on? I hope I had, I had prepared a list. Then I can say, here's the list. These things are going to work. Unfortunately, not. I hope I've answered them. But obviously, the political will issue, it's a very, dicey situation. For the next 5 years, we are talking about the new dawn. We have even gone to unsign or to withdraw whatever they did there. 10 years later, who knows where will we be? But if we can get the instruments, I think the challenge here was that our instruments were not quite clear. The legal framework that regulated the tribunal sort of, created a lot of loopholes. That's why we saw these challenges upcoming. Let me stop there and not make another presentation. My brother, justice comes in many forms. When I used to be a human rights lawyer, you always talk about due process and so on. But a human rights lawyer will always say, what he or she has done, let us investigate that. Let us give them an opportunity to be heard and voice their matter. That's a head with the human rights. There is another head of retribution. There it's happening in Sudan, Republic of Congo, and many other African countries. What are the results? You must go and research and tell me. Successful model of land reform. You need to take an airplane, go to South Korea. They will tell you, obviously, the circumstances are not similar to us. The approach will always differ there and there. There is no one who's disputing the historical injustices relating to land reform. And obviously, it has budgetary constraints. Those who are wearing the other hats are saying, for example, you took my laptop, now I want it back. You want me to compensate you for what? But we have subscribed to the notion of human rights and democracy. And what does it requires us to do? I don't know, you don't have to answer me. What does it require us to do? It says, okay, today we are coming to evict you, leave now. We won't follow the same human rights mechanisms that we have created. There is no straight answer, but we need to try and play around with these things, balance them. I don't know how we'll eventually strike that equilibrium. I hope I was not that evasive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, just in the interest of time, we'll move along so that we're able to finish on time. I trust everybody's answered. So at the current juncture, I'll just ask Amy to please just come up and hand over a gift to the professor. We just want to say thank you for coming through and having this conversation with us. Thank you, Deb. Always read. All right, thank you very much. We'll just move on to the next part of our conversation, and I'll ask Ms. Nahaja Adam to just come right now and take us through the petition that we've all signed, right? Or we're still signing, or we're going to sign, and that we are going to tell our friends, family, colleagues to sign as well. Can we give her a round of applause as she comes up?
Hi guys. Thank you so much. As Zoe mentioned earlier, and you've been seeing, the signing of the petition is important to us as a group because we intend on sending these letters out to the various heads of states of the Sadek tribe, the Sadek states, because there's an upcoming summit in August. So you want them to put the Sadek Tribunal, the issue of the Sadek Tribunal on the agenda to discuss it, and then we make a case for them to revive it. So if you could please take out your phones, your laptops, and all your nice things. So this is going to be a Dorcas moment where we project this petition. So we see people who are signing. So please take out your phones and your laptops. I see Lufuno has, and go to ipetitions.com. Guys, you're not taking out your phones. Thank you, Tobikile. Thank you, Lizo. Yes, Benjamin, you don't have human rights, but you have a phone. Thank you. Yes, I see you, Nelson. Ramu, take out your phone. You can borrow someone's laptop. Yes, and go to ipetitions.com at the top there. Magnus, thank you. And then you search.
Just reminding everyone that you're filling out the validation.
Maybe you should have me to help you get that along. So you go to ipetitions.com and then you search Revive Sadek Tribunal. You see this logo. You search Revive, is on the left-hand side of the, okay, let me. So when you go to iPetitions, yes. So you search here, you click here, and then at the end of the screen over here, there's a search googly thing. So yes, and then, pardon? Yes. And please, those on Zoom as well, kindly join us as we sign. So you search Revive Sadek Tribunal and then Future Africa. Yes, it's the first one at the top. Sive, I see you, thank you. You click on it and then you enter your name, your email, and your comments. You can put on the things you've learned from professors' very informative topics. And also don't forget to tweet with the hashtag. So I see Landilani. Thank you, Landilani. Sipo, oh no, that's 1 hour ago. Our colleagues online. Magnus, I'm waiting for you. Oh, the Mabuzes are in the house. Thank you, Mabuzes.
I only get signed in join and
No, okay, let me. You, yay! Same thing for you.
Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I can just fill in the address, I guess.
Yes, please sign.
Yes. Apparently, the whole interface cannot do that, so we are going to share with you a
No,
link.
if you just write the
Oh, yes, you can also do petition / revive dash the Sadek Tribunal to lead you right to the same.
Yeah.
The Mabuzas are signing. Oh, Johannes, thank you, Johannes. Judith? Whoever. The Tumis are in the house. Oh, okay, sorry. So please don't forget to sign in and we'll just continue. Rudy, thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Magnus. All right, Benjamin, I see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Please do continue encouraging everyone to keep on signing.
Thank you, Professor Moses.
Yes, to keep signing the petition. We're just moving towards the end of our program, and I'll ask Professor Magnus Killander to come and give us the closing remarks before we go.
Okay, so I heard that food is getting cold, so I can't take long, which I wouldn't anyway after this elaborate analysis of the issues by Professor Puku. Very grateful for your assistance in this campaign that we have set up, and of course that we hope that the students continue after the 4th of June. It's just like an assessment dates that I set in my wisdom. It doesn't come from any particular reason per se, but I think you have gotten going quite well, and just want to take up on the issues of like how do one reach out and who do you reach out to. So you saw this nice colonial building in the beginning of Professor Puku's presentation. Where is that?
Namibia.
It's in Windhoek in Namibia, the seat of the SADC Tribunal. So of course, countries like their international organizations, their institutions, perhaps. So is there a possibility of also getting Namibia on board? Well, Hilma would know. So, her contacts that can make the magic happen. Of course, we heard about Cyril Ramaphosa then withdrawing the signature. This signature withdrawal in international law is a little bit like of a difficulty, I guess. I mean, and also the practicals of how one do it. But for example, the US many years ago wanted to withdraw their signature to the statute on the International Criminal Court. There was a lot of debate on whether one can do that really under international law. But of course, if one is instructed by one's constitutional court to do so, well, I guess then one has no choice. Then one takes out the eraser or whatever one. But of course, the thing doesn't stop there. It can't be that that just by preventing the 2014 tribunal went into force, things are done. I mean, it was all thing about by dismantling the tribunal, we have lost access to rule of law and so forth, the access to justice. Of course, you then have like the African Commission its wisdom in the Timbani case, saying that, oh no, in the African Charter, there is no international access to justice, but we have our national courts that have said that the rule of law requires that we do something. So I think there should be some momentum, and that also requires a bit of education within the departments and so forth. And also linked to this thing of like, well, now they want to have like a human rights court. Well, I mean, we have a human rights court, called the African Court on Human and People's Rights. A lot of states in Southern Africa has ratified the protocol, including South Africa, but they haven't. It's only Malawi and Tanzania, but Tanzania withdrew its declaration that then allows direct access. And once when I was talking from someone from the Department of Justice on making that declaration, they said, the guy said, no, but that would make those decisions binding on us. Okay, but they are already. You have ratified the protocol. So sometimes there's a little bit of education perhaps to be done. And I mean, of course, when you can reach politicians directly, very good, engage. But of course, it's the people sitting and setting the agenda within the departments that is also important to reach out to and find. I mean, who is going to represent our various countries at the Sadek summit? I mean, who at DEFCO is in charge of the South African delegation? How do one engage with that? How do one engage with the Department of Justice? Because obviously it falls under a bit under different. I mean, there are several departments somehow involved in these issues. So I think, and also I remember when we had a clinical presentation, there was something about like that Rado has a direct line to the president of Madagascar. So I mean, see these like connections that one has somehow that one can use. I mean, in your LinkedIn profiles or something, you are usually just a couple of steps away from the people that you want to reach. So I think there's plenty that one can do. I mean, of course, it's just to try to convince that. I mean, it's much easier to just revive something that already exists, except in practice, than to try to reinvent something new. Because I mean, the staff of the SADC Tribunal were paid for a couple of years after it was suspended, because they just forgot about that part. So they were sitting in the tribunal, essentially doing nothing. I mean, the judges have been told they can't hear any cases, but they sort of forgot about the staff member. Of course, they are not there anymore. 10 years later. But there's been some change in the political landscape. There might not be that much development in some countries. But if you have a few that you can get moving forward, and I mean that you coordinate lobby with like Sadek Lawyers Association that is active in the area and others. I think perhaps one can get there at some point or not, but I mean at least one has tried. So that's for that, and thank you to all our guests, especially Professor Oko, and I should also just mention, since we have some of our trade and investment students,
yes,
that of course you also have Sadek law, which specifically provide for that SADC Tribunal is the dispute resolution mechanism. And for example, in the SADC legislation dealing with investments, I mean, they can take it to exceed in those places, but I mean, if one can do it locally, why not? So I mean, if you have reference to the SADC Tribunal being the institution that should do some stuff, then it would make sense to have it. And what we know now is that, at least in the case of South Africa, that shouldn't be the 2014 protocol. And as far as I know, no country has ratified the 2014 protocol, if you has signed it. But so we then don't need to reinvent the wheel, we can just reinstate what we have and take that forward. If they want to reinvent the wheel, I guess they can do it, but then it has to be something nicer than the 2014 protocol. So that was the end of the concluding remarks. And, you are all invited to for refreshment.
Colleagues, thank you very much once again for coming through and spending this time with us. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be with you today. So as the prof has said, please join us for some refreshments outside and have a good evening. Thank you.
Apparently you don't respect the Zoomers.
I do respect this.
Thank you, Bwalia Chisanga.
Thank you.
You're welcome, BFF.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. No.